And so earlier this week, we saw that while Tucker did not bend the knee, Kevin Roberts at the Heritage Foundation did. Now, what is the significant difference between Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation and Tucker Carlson? The Heritage Foundation is one of the most corporate-funded, GOP-adjacent nonprofits in all of politics. Much like the Center for American Progress with the Democratic Party and Neera Tanden, that's the equivalent. The Heritage Foundation wrote Obamacare. It was Romney Care First, a complete corporate giveaway to big pharma and private insurance. Yes, it included additional access to those that had pre-existing conditions, but as I have pointed out time and again, you either have a single-payer healthcare system like the most advanced countries in the world do and do it right, because not all of them are perfect or even great, but that's what we need. If you're a libertarian in any way when it comes to economics, how you don't support single-payer is beyond me. It's the most cost-efficient way to do healthcare. And the Heritage Foundation is one of those organizations that moves heaven and earth to never allow a policy like that to ever become law in the United States. So why do I bring this up? Because we are going to close tonight with what I felt was the most important statement from Fuentes this week regarding all of the hoopla that is going around with anyone who has anything to do with him, because he's persona non grata. So here's what he had to say.
Happen next? What's going to happen next is Kevin Roberts will be fired and a Jewish person will be appointed his replacement. Mark my words.
Maybe.
It'll either be some Christian Zionist or more likely it'll be a straight up Jewish person. But this guy is toast. If the National Task Force is pulling out, this guy's done. He's donezo. He's going to offer up his resignation any day, and they're going to replace him with a Jew or some hardcore Christian Zionist, because that's how this stuff goes. All that apologizing, all his attacks against me, and that was the beauty of it. He thought he was going to throw me under the bus. When they all came down on him, he thought he was going to come out the following day and he was going to shit on me and say, well, Nick is a terrible person. He thought that was going to save his skin. How did that work?
It didn't work because the Zionazi ideology is dying, and unfortunately, Nick's ideology is rising. We have covered Nick before when he has had very questionable language regarding Israel. But this guy is a businessman. And he is building one hell of an operation. Do you know why? Because the America First message is not embraced by left populists the way that it should be. I embrace it. I want to undo NAFTA. I want to bring manufacturing back to the United States, starting with nuclear power across the board, high-speed rail, of which Marjorie Taylor Greene is now talking about. Take a look at the video she just posted regarding her trip from D.C. to Atlanta on the Amtrak. Maybe we should get back to using trains more in this country. Oh, you think? How about a single-payer healthcare system? How about tuition-free public college and trade schools? How about clean water and air to deal with our climate change? Because that's what climate change really is. The disintegration of our health, our soil, our air, our water, dumping that these multinational mega corporations that buy off our politicians get away with. Fuentes is figuring out how to grab that audience. This is a desperate country. And with great power comes great responsibility, which is why, on the one hand, you can criticize where necessary, but also recognize why he's gaining. It's obvious why he's gaining to anyone with an objective eye. And as I said, I don't trust him, but I can appreciate what he's doing to destroy neoconservatism in the United States. And that he is certainly doing.
Here we are, 6 million apologies later, and it's still not working. And I already said it at the top of the show. This is why you never apologize. You never apologize, even unfortunately when you're in the wrong. Unfortunately. And I say that because I do think you should apologize when you're wrong. I don't think Kevin Roberts was wrong here, but I do think you should apologize even when you're wrong. But the problem is, who are we apologizing to? It's people that hate us. It's people that don't want what's best for us. It's people that are not looking for a good faith apology.
That is an excellent point by Nick. If there is an excellent point to end all excellent points about apologizing to people like the Zion Nazis, they don't want your apology. They want your loyalty and your submission. That's it. And they got it from Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation. They didn't get it from Tucker Carlson. They got it from a person whose organization is funded by the Zion Nazi billionaire class. Apologize now or the money goes away. And did he get his mind right quick?
They don't want Kevin Roberts to mean it. They don't want him to say the words. They want him to be fired because they want him to be penalized, to send a message. They want his head on a platter because then that's a scalp. They want to put his head on a fucking stick so they can put it outside the city walls, metaphorically, and say, this is what happens. This is what happens when you don't disavow the Groypers hard enough. This is what happens when you don't disavow Tucker. And they're going to parade it around in the city streets and say, this is what will happen to all of the other nonprofits if you don't take care of your Groyper problem. Thomas Massey, Marjorie Green, Claremont, this is what will happen to your campaign, your office, your nonprofit. If you have a Groyper problem, you better get to the bottom of it, because otherwise we're going to demand your resignation too. Nobody wants to be Kevin Roberts today, and nobody wants to be Heritage Foundation.
Trump is expecting to get from the Zio billionaires led by Miriam Adelson as much as $20 million for the primary of that worthless America First jerk, Thomas Massey. 20 million is going to be thrown at him. So very similar to what happened to Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush is now happening to Thomas Massey. And they're going to spend every penny to try to get him out. But here's what I will say regarding that move. They better not miss. Because if they do, it's pretty much over for everybody. Everybody. They're going to put that much money into trying to take that race, to go after Massey. You're only breaking up the movement even faster. But this is kind of the thing about America First that I have to give a respect to. They don't need a leader like Trump to make it go forward. Credit where credit's due. But the danger is somebody like Fuentes leading it and where that could go.
Because they're creating a storm. They're making it ugly. They're making it painful. They're squeezing everybody. They're leaking communications. They're playing dirty. And Kevin Roberts at the all-staff meeting, so in the middle of this, all of the internal emails and videos are being leaked to the press. And Kevin Roberts addressing this at the staff meeting, which was also leaked, he goes, whoever is leaking these videos, that's not virtuous. He said Heritage Foundation is dedicated to civic virtue and public virtue. If you're leaking my emails, that's not virtuous. Oh, you stupid idiot.
This is cutthroat time now. And they all have to make sure they get their ducks in a row, which is, again, I cannot emphasize enough the danger that Zoran is going to be in if he brings BDS into City Hall. If he does that against Israel, I mean, I don't care what else he does as mayor. He'll be remembered forever. He will set off a chain reaction, the likes of which I don't think anyone could possibly imagine is going to come from it. But he also may be a dead man if he does it. They don't care. That level of power and control, if they can publicly execute Charlie Kirk, there is nothing they won't do to protect their Zion-Nazi state. And if you come after their money, which is what Charlie was doing by disintegrating that relationship with the Christian Zionists from the Jewish Zionists and taking Turning Point USA in a different direction, he had to go. And if Zoran, again, it's one thing to win the mayoral race. It's another thing entirely to really come after them financially. Then you'll find out how far they're willing to go to protect their infrastructure that they've cultivated for 3 generations.
Oh, the Jews are playing dirty. Oh, little white boy playing in the Jewish game. You're leaking our emails. That's not fair. That's a sin. My brother in Christ, they don't play fair. That's all they do. You're complaining they're not playing nice. They're playing dirty. He goes, to these people that are leaking our emails, that's not virtuous. And if we find you, we're going to fire you. You idiot. Of course they play dirty. They're going to make your life a living hell. They're going to make your life a living hell. They're going to go for the money. They're going to go for the platforms. They're going to come for everything. And they're going to keep coming. They're going to keep pushing until your whole thing falls apart and everybody blames you.
And once again, Fuentes is spot on in that assessment. You cannot give in. You are either defiant or you're not. But again, corporate special interests, if they have found their way in, if they have taken over, if they are now the host of the breathing body, they will suck you dry until you're dead. And that's what's going to happen to the Heritage Foundation. They will destroy them. Or, as Nick has suggested, they'll put a Zionist in charge. That's what's going to happen. And oh boy, it's like I said, things are now starting to get interesting.
And you're blaming yourself, you stupid idiot. And like I said, they're doing that for a reason. They are doing that to create a chilling effect. And they're going to go to every other nonprofit, every other institution and say, you don't want to be Heritage, huh? It's like a protection racket. Oh, shame what happened to Heritage, huh? Be a shame if that happened to you. Better hope you don't have a Groyper problem. And what do you think every nonprofit is doing? Their due diligence to root out the Groypers, signal allegiance to Israel, because they don't want their apple cart upset.
But it's not going to last. In fact, their attempts to get ahead of this is too late. And if they were doing this, because remember, we had done a number of shows, a number of long form streams on this channel going all the way back to 2022 regarding Zionism. And Jen partnered with friend of the show, Katie Halper, to talk about this at length. Deconstructing Zionism. Look it up in our archives. It tells you all you need to know. Just as we said, it didn't start on October 7th. In fact, I would say October 7th is when it began. That's when people started waking up. But we didn't get to it fast enough. We did what we could, but the consensus, it never allowed itself to take over. We should have been wise to this from the beginning, when it was obvious what they were doing on the campuses to these students. Even if you didn't agree with them politically, guys, we have to recognize that in times of turmoil, especially in times when our country is losing its way, possibly the whole way, the people you think are your enemies are really your allies. And the people you think you're defending are actually the ones that you should be working against. That's one of the hardest lessons in politics. I try to make people realize. BDS is bank divestment and sanction, and in this case of Israel. Boycott, divest. I keep getting that one wrong, but as our trusty mod points out, boycott, divestment, sanction. I don't know why I say bank, but basically you're divesting from the bank, but you're also boycotting. And I've often said that the differences that we have, a lot of that just comes from the unknown when it comes to fighting against it. People don't understand how nationalism becomes a consensus. People don't understand why they don't like people of certain persuasions. Again, why does a story like trans athletes become center stage in politics? You think it's because that's an issue that actually is affecting everyday lives across the country in every single school in the United States? No, it's affecting a handful. But that's enough to make it a national story and make it a real problem. Why? Because if you actually had to examine the broken economic and political system that is the United States, we'd have a revolution. We'd have it tomorrow.